right, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining, India, Finland. Welcome to another session of India Finland Startup Hub, a collaboration between Business Finland and Startup India, powered by Headstart Network Foundation. I'm your host for the evening, Jain. I lead communities and international ecosystems here at Headstart. I'm based out of Bangalore, India. The weather here is quite obnoxious today. It's raining cats and dogs, and if that's the same in your city, I hope you grab a cup of chai or coffee and enjoy the rest of the session this evening. So it's always a pleasure to curate these sessions for you all, and I'm extremely overwhelmed with the response we've been getting for these sessions. So thank you for that. And today, as you all know, we'll be diving deep into the energy ecosystem in Finland and India, and also exploring some possibilities and opportunities in the near future. But before we get to that, I would request Hannah to quickly say a hi to all our audience here and set the tone for the evening.
Yes, my name is Hanna Riski. I work for Business Finland's Work in Finland unit here in Finland. And I'm really eager to welcome you all to our webinar this afternoon on future of energy. We have really good speakers both from the Indian side and also from Finland. And I really hope that you all are active. You can post questions and comments to the chat. I will be moderating the chat today. And we will have, after each presenter, a few minutes time to go through a couple of questions you have posted there. And also we have reserved some time to go through comments and questions at the end of our webinar. So I hope that you are all active. I hope you have a fruitful webinar today. I have also prepared a feedback questionnaire, which I hope that you would fill in after this webinar. We would really much value your feedback. I will insert the link to the feedback questionnaire later on to the chat. But thank you from my side, and back to you, Arzu. I hope you all have a really good webinar.
Thanks, Hannah. And yeah, without further ado, I think we're good to begin. And I would like to quickly welcome Helena Sarén, who heads the zero carbon mission at Business Finland. Helena is someone who's a sought after expert when it comes to the energy sector, and someone who's been deeply involved with the ecosystem and its development for over a decade. So we'll begin today's webinar by understanding a bit more about the energy ecosystem in Finland by none other than Helena Sarén.
Yes, thank you very much. I just try to share my screen here. For some reason, it just doesn't give me an opportunity to share the one. Okay, let's hope it works now.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay, thank you very much for your kind words for the introductory. And in the next 15 minutes or so, I try to focus on the topics which I find, at least at the moment, the most interesting, and my thoughts which I would like to share with you. Obviously, the 15 minutes is quite challenging because so much is happening in this field at the moment, as all of us know. So yes, my name is Helena Sarén, and I'm at the moment heading the Zero Carbon Future mission here at Business Finland. And prior to that, when I was running something like 5-6 years, our Smart Energy Finland program. And during that time, also visited several times of India. So love to hear also what is the status at the moment in India in this respect. So let's go further. And by the way, these slides can be delivered in PDF format and later on to audience if you want to do that one. So okay, yes, probably some of you are familiar with this very, very ambitious targets of Finland of being carbon neutral by 2035, negative by 2050, and also phasing out coal altogether at the 2029. And I have to say that the most of our energy utilities have even more ambitious targets of coal outphasing. So in the next 5 years' time, probably majority of them have reduced the coal totally out of their portfolio. And in Finland, generally, when we are talking about is that our energy base is built from that perspective that we have a great variety of different raw materials, I could use that way, and also in our portfolio the nuclear is as well included. In order to take us to carbon neutrality and further to carbon negativity, we have gone throughout all our society and different aspects and understood very carefully which is the role of each segment here. So in our case, the most crucial ones are obviously our industrial base, then definitely the energy infrastructure as such, and then the transport sector. Those are the ones. And in Finland, what we have also done, which is kind of phenomenal, I would say, also from the worldwide perspective, is that our industries are very committed to take this route, and as an example, all of our major industry sectors have created their own carbon neutrality roadmap. And here I could say the emphasis is mainly on energy issues and then also transport issues. And as an example, in the city infrastructures, the emissions during the all lifespan and especially in the usage phase. So I would say that all our society is very committed. And during the recent couple of decades, different kind of legislative changes and input from our governmental side have also enhanced this development and speeded this up. And when thinking from a global perspective, I think that our message here is that this change is doable and we are capable of doing it. But in order to do that, we definitely need more intensified cooperation and also lots of new innovations. So then this next slide, and here I had a very some nice features there, but obviously not now, so it looks a little bit busy and messy. But starting from the top there, the short term and long term, and I would like to emphasize here that especially now when we are unfortunately having the war almost in the heart of Europe in Ukraine, the energy issues have become more and more known throughout the society. And at the moment, the need is and the focus is very much in the short term. So with the existing solutions, there are for the existing solutions and existing needs, they are to be matched at the moment in order for Europe to survive this coming winter. But at the same time, obviously, we have to take care of our long-term competitiveness and also in the longer term, our keeping up our targets to become carbon neutral. So that is highly important to keep in mind. And I would say that even though we have had this development to carbon neutrality in the Europe and the sustainability as such, this war in Ukraine, maybe for a certain shortened time period, it slows down the development, could do that way, but when having a little bit wider scope, I think it's going to be speeded up tremendously because everybody sees how important role energy plays in all societies, not only as an enabler for the decarbonization for the whole society, but it's also a question of stability, competitiveness, and so forth. Then in the middle row, there is the implementation, cities, industries, and end clients. Here, I would like to very much emphasize that at the moment, in this huge restructuring of the whole energy sector, as well as this development in the decarbonization, new players are coming into the field. Also, the cities very much have having the empowered role, and they are driving the change in many countries. And also there are lots of new demands from the end clients, both industrial end clients, but also individuals for fossil-free products and solutions and services as such. And from the implementation point of view, I've seen many carbon neutrality roadmaps or target cities from different countries or cities or even companies. But the main question is how to do that. So what are the critical steps and also the new needed solutions and innovations to enable the decarbonization to take place? And here I see that Finland could play a crucial role as a partner for local, regional and global players such as cities and companies as such. Then on the left-hand side, there are the innovations and investments bubbles. And by these, I mean that at least according to International Energy Agency, after the year 2030, we are on a global level missing maybe close to half of the innovations which would carry us to net zero on 2050. So it means that lots of input needs to be made into innovations and investments into that sphere. And here I would also like to see more international collaboration in the innovation already from the day one. Investments, I mean that innovations are not enough, but we have to implement them. And here we definitely need the path from innovations to investments, and also investments to somewhat more riskier new innovations, which obviously include technological and economical risks when something new is included there. So that is the one. And then on the right hand side, we have the holisticity and hydrogen and power to X, which I want to emphasize here. And more of the needs and the new solutions, they come from the fact that we have cross-pollinating activities amongst the sectors. And this kind of sector coupling and sectoral integration needs to be taken care in much more, in a larger role as well also in the future. Hydrogen and power to X. Hydrogen is very hot topic, I would say, a little bit maybe overheated at the moment, but definitely one crucial point in order to carry us to the decarbonized future. But obviously many innovations, many solutions we are missing at the moment, and definitely more innovations need to be done in that one. Then on the bottom line, we have the geopolitics, winners of tomorrow, cooperation and new partnerships. And I would say that at the moment, the geopolitics and also the risk assessments are becoming more and more important for the companies when they are selecting with whom they are cooperating, in which countries they are cooperating, and which are their priority partners and priority networks in which they want to be part of. And that is definitely something that needs to be taken care of much better than many have been doing so far. So this kind of a friend sourcing and that kind of phenomena we see from the global level. So those kind of topics today are on my mind, but definitely there are much more, but these were the ones I wanted to pinpoint here. Then from our point of view, what is this zero carbon future where we're aiming at? And we have defined it so that our future well-being is made with global carbon handprint. And that means that with our experiences and the proven solutions, as an example, what we are doing and the development we are doing here in Finland, we are hoping to be a trustworthy partner for the cities, companies outside of Finland in order to jointly create the solutions for the demanding challenges our foreign partners are facing. So we want to be on a more visible in global markets with our companies and research organizations. And definitely we are not doing this alone, but we are at the moment seeking new partners, looking at the most important global networks where we want to be part in. Then from our point of view, which are our focuses within this zero carbon future? One is the energy transition and the other one is carbon neutral mobility and transport. And the bubbles there in the middle visualize that what I see are one of the Finland's superpower is the involvement and cross-pollinating these sometimes a little bit more traditional sectors to the solutions coming from digitalization, circular economy, as well as applying the bioeconomy principles. And that is something we are also aiming heavily at, how to integrate and intensify the cooperation amongst the companies outside the silos, the now existing structures, because those are the ones where those are the play fields where new innovations and new winning solutions can be developed, identified, and implemented. And then this we have done together with the VTT here in Finland, and I think it's a couple years back, but I think it's still valid. And these are very much our focus areas when looking at our Finland strongholds in the smart energy field. And those three entities are climate neutral electrification, smart and flexible energy systems, as well as the circular economy of energy, which in other words is more like a recycling of valuable molecules, especially hydrogen, nitrogen, and carbon. And lots of ecosystems are under this topic, and at least BI is going to focus on some of these and explain more into details about that one. And then my last slide is about 8 green identified technologies which are crucial for decarbonization path. And in all of these, I see that energy sector plays also a crucial role. The green bubbles here mean that there we already have some solutions in commercial space, but obviously some further development needs to be done. And these are very much also Finland's strongholds as well. Then when we are going to new processes, digitalization and nature-based solutions, yes, some solutions are existing, but definitely more innovations needs to be done. And then when we will go further down, go into the fuel switch, carbon capture utilization and storage solutions, even more emphasis needs to be put into innovations, and because those solutions are definitely something we need in order to carry us through the decarbonization path. And I would say that all in all the ecosystems we are having under development here in Finland, all our actions outside of Finland and also in Finland, I would love to see much more of foreign talents and foreign companies in order to intensify our innovation activities and also creating the solutions which are also needed out there in the world in order to solve the challenges our potential partners and end clients are needing. So approximately with the technicality problems what I have used now about my 15 minutes time, so I end here, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Helena. I think this is quite a deep dive into the overview of the energy sector and from a global perspective, actually. So thank you for that, and thank you for highlighting the possibilities of collaboration. I'm sure the founders here would find that helpful. But yeah, we do have some time in hand. So if you guys have any questions, please add them to the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can let you unmute yourself. If not, I think Helena will be here for quite some time and she can take your questions in the chat as well. So yes, with that, we will move to our next session. Just let me get Pia on Spotlight. Yes. Yeah, so we have Pia with us, who heads the co-innovation at CLIC Innovation. Just for everyone's reference, CLIC is an open innovation cluster with a mission of systematic breakthrough solutions in bioeconomy and clean tech. The cluster consists of world's leading companies and research institutions to which bioeconomy and clean tech markets are important business and competition factors. Today, Pia will be sharing about green electrification ecosystem, which is an innovation ecosystem project by CLIC Innovation. So yes, excited to hear more about it. Over to you, Pia.
Thank you for a very good presentation, and good afternoon from the Finnish side. So I try now to share my. So I will tell you about our green electrification ecosystem. We have now managed the ecosystem about 2 years and still continuing because there is a lot happening right now. And why we exist, why we have this kind of view that this kind of collaboration and jointly doing actively things, it's important because we believe that together we can develop high value products and services that makes the industry and the energy sector carbon neutral. You heard already from Helena's presentation that Finland had a very tight targets to be a carbon neutral already 2035. So we need to do really a lot to reach these targets. About the green electrification and kind of transition vision about our ecosystem. So we need to get rid of the fossil fuels. First coal, then oil, and also gas. And what's there to kind of compensate those? Like Helena mentioned, we have now in Europe kind of hydrogen hub. Everybody is discussing about the hydrogen and the possibilities it can give to the energy sector. And it's true, it's very important thing because you can imagine that in Nordic countries, it's not so easy to utilize, for example, solar energy during the whole year because the sun is shining only in summertime. So we need also storages for that solar power. And it's the same thing for wind. Although we have a very good wind potential in Nordic countries, but anyway, there are days which it's not blowing at all. But then there are days that it's huge wind capacity. So how to store that kind of capacity there, the hydrogen is a very good solution. Of course, hydrogen can be directly used, for example, for some industrial cases to decarbonize the industrial processes, as well as for the transport sector. Use it as a direct fuel or utilize it for other compounds like ammonia or synthetic fuels. Power to X technology, very important. From hydrogen and for example, carbon dioxide, you can even produce food. Storage is very important. All kind of efficiency and optimization of the processes plays a crucial role also. The resilient energy system and electrification of different processes. For example, in transport sector, we have seen a very quick change in the cars and what kind of fuels they are utilizing. So we have built kind of open innovation ecosystem for green electrification, and it's kind of pioneer community. There are not existing similar kind of collaboration in elsewhere. And of course, it's needed for the development of new technologies and solutions, but also to demonstrate and pilot those new technologies and make them to be commercial and also to be utilized. Like Helena said, it's very important that we also implement the new technology and we are able to do it. So in green electrification ecosystem, we mostly produce RDI projects, also demonstrations and piloting. But we also do market shaping together with the companies, successions for needs for new education. For example, in Finland, we have together with the universities planned how we can teach more hydrogen economy related issues in universities so that the companies will get new employments. And of course, this all will build new markets. So we can produce hydrogen, but if there is no market available, who will buy it and for what purposes? So these are very important issues. In green electrification ecosystem, we have now kind of 4 topics. One is this hydrogen production, infrastructure and utilization. And the other one is development of power to X and carbon capture and utilization solutions. Then we have, of course, the sector integration, technologies and value chains. Because, for example, in hydrogen production, to get the cost-efficient system, you need to utilize all the side streams. There's a lot of heat produced from the electrolysis. And in Nordic countries, especially in Finland, it's easy to utilize that heat also for the district heating, which is needed in cold countries. And of course, this kind of systemic view and system level integration is very important. And this relates to all topics as well. The sector integration is very important, and also all the value chains inside that. So we are kind of cooperation initiative of Finnish process and technology industries, energy and transport sector, together with research institutes, universities, and also governance. So to kind of make this big energy transition available, we need to collaborate. We need to have all those organizations to take part of the development. So here you can see all our partners and ecosystem members at this moment. So there are different kind of companies, different kind of organizations, a lot of research organizations and universities, small and medium-sized companies, startups, large companies, large global actors, as well as a lot of international networks, because that kind of network collaboration is also very important. And here are some examples of the ongoing projects under the green electrification ecosystem. So we are involved in the ERANET of smart energy system, and we are there in the management level supporting the project and building of a living labs and test facilities also. NewGen is a quite new EU project where we are involved, and we have this highly optimized energy system called HOPE, which is a co-innovation project, over 10 million project, where Business Finland is funding, and there are universities and companies collaborating together. And here the sector integration is the main part, how to kind of integrate the electricity and heat market together and develop them also together. We have just submitted an application about decarbonized cities, and we have one EU project called HYTRAC. It's the hydrogen use of the heavy road transport, and waiting for a funding decision during the September. And we just received a positive funding decision for our bio-based carbon capture and utilization project today. So we should also change this color to be ongoing project. It's very important because bio-based carbon is very important for different kind of products. Together with the green hydrogen, you can produce chemicals, even food and other purposes, plastics and that kind of thing. So I think the bio-based carbon will be very important in the future. And then we are now on the preparing phase also to build a cross-border hydrogen valley between South Finland and Estonia. And that project is focused on the Horizon Call right now. And that is also a very important and large project. But our goal is to help achieving the carbon neutrality targets with the help of this green electrification. And by growing our competence in those focus areas I already mentioned, this is very important. And also this boosting the pioneering business opportunities. So, which we do together with you. So that is one very important target. The collaboration is really needed in this scope. And that's why this kind of green electrification network and ecosystem is really needed. But these were my slides, so thank you all. And if you have any questions, I'd like to answer.
Thanks, Pia. That was quite insightful, and I hope the audiences were able to understand the sort of collaborations that can happen with the help of CLIC Innovation. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box, or if you want to ask them one-on-one, I am happy to give you the access of unmuting. I would also request Pia for you to maybe leave your email ID or something so that people can reach out to you with more maybe opportunities.
Yes, and I can also share the presentation. So
yes, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Arzu, there are a couple of questions in the chat. First of all, I don't know whether Pia or Helena would like to answer. Here's a question about the hydrogen energy. And isn't it a bit risky to use on a regular basis? What kind of comments have our presenters for this?
If I answer first, so hydrogen is utilized, especially in industry, already long time and all the time. For example, in refineries and that kind of thing. So of course, it's always a safety issue, but you have to take account these criteria, so it's not problematic. We have already a lot of experience by utilizing hydrogen.
Great, thank you. And I think there was a sort of a question for Helena, as Helena mentioned at the end of her presentation about collaboration possibilities. So here's a question about what sort of collaboration are we looking for here? Helena, would you have some comments? When, for example, looking at Indian startups?
Well, obviously that is quite a large question, but in brief, I think that from Finland's point of view, we have quite a nice bunch of companies already operating in this field. However, saying that obviously we don't have all the competencies and so forth within Finland, which is obvious, only 5.5 million people and so forth, however technologically oriented. And therefore, I would love to see as an example companies focusing on providing some new innovations related, for instance, digitalization or data handling or something, and those companies could be part of the ecosystem. So group of, like Pia was explaining what kind of ecosystem we are having. So there would be, as an example, foreign companies part of that ecosystem, and jointly the companies would then develop new solutions and also probably test and demonstrate new solutions. So that could be as one. And then there might be, depending on, again, of the size of the company, but however, if there are some, as an example, some foreign players which are taking a larger bunch of a certain project, as an example. So the Finnish companies could be there's a providers of certain technologies and solutions for that company in order to get more economically viable project or whatever you name it for that targets. And then also I would love to see more of the demonstration taking place also outside of Finland. So in that case, depending again what kind of companies we are talking about. And now in my radar, there are 3 new programs or items which we are pushing forward. And when we are having now at the moment new programs in the pipeline, it means that in that area, we from our side are committed to, let's say, 5 to 6 years to make the movement starting, and obviously after that some other activities take place. And in these thematics we have, firstly, it's the decarbonized cities, where obviously this energy transition and transport and mobility are all in the radar, but however, some new digitalized solutions, some more holistic systemic views needed, and there we need, as an example, also foreign companies in order to make the offering package much more lucrative and attractive for the end users, and also speeding up the innovation. Then the next one has something to do with the hydrogen and power to X, and the third one is whether it's a program or campaign, I don't know what it's yet, but it's about the critical materials. But so those were some examples, but like I said, it's a wide scope, but all in all, we need more cooperation, starting from the innovation part, then going further to testing, demonstration, and also implementation. But again, it depends what kind of a company we are having in the radar, the size and the scope and so forth, but much more cooperation is needed. Hopefully that answered at least somewhat.
Yes, good answer, thank you.
I hope that answers your question, Abhishek. And I think Helena has also dropped coordinates of her colleagues who you can reach out to for further clarification on how you can collaborate. I think in the interest of time, let's move forward with our third session of the day. So I'd quickly take a minute to introduce Mikael to everyone here. He heads external venturing in Fortum, a European energy company with activities in more than 40 countries, and they provide their customers with electricity, gas, heating and cooling, as well as smart solutions to improve resource efficiency. So today, Mikael will be sharing more about how startups can collaborate with Fortum, and a bit more about Fortum and what they're trying to do in the ecosystem. Welcome to the session, Mikael.
Thanks very much. And could you give me a quick shout once you can see my my slides? Hopefully it's coming through okay.
Yes, it is.
Perfect, wonderful. And thanks for the great introduction. So as a recap, my role is everything to do with external startups at Fortum. So essentially helping Fortum become a customer for the most innovative technologies out there, investing directly as Fortum in the best startups within the Fortum geographies in Europe. And I also head our VC fund investment activities. So when Fortum invests in venture capital funds directly, and those funds then invest in startups from there on. And Fortum, as you described there, we're a Finnish clean energy company focused around the megatrends of climate change and the circular economy. We have about 19,000 people at our company in the group across Europe. But let me dive into, in the next 10-15 minutes, I want to talk a bit about how we view the energy transition and how and why we work with startups in the way we do. So I'll start with a bit of an introduction into how we see the shifting energy landscape. What you can see here on this slide is kind of the 4+1 trends or drivers we're seeing for the energy world as it is today. So if you think back, let's say 10 to 20 years, the energy world and the electricity world in particular was fairly simple and static. We have had for about 100 years a time where we've got an asset base of coal plants, hydro plants, etc., catering to a very fairly static demand in a one-directional system. But in the last 10, 20 years, that's actually changed very fast through new renewables, through digitization, etc., etc. So we're kind of bringing those drivers of that change together here on this slide. So the first one of those, as we see it, is the competitiveness of clean energy hardware. So essentially the falling cost curve of wind, of solar, of hydrogen electrolyzers, of lithium-ion batteries, and that's really creating an opening to produce and store energy in a different way than we've been doing in the past. Secondly, there's a strong prevalence of data and connectivity. So what you can do with digital tools and kind of how you can leverage that data is transforming industries quite a bit. What used to be kind of you need a special skill set for certain items in the past. Now a lot of that is actually fairly trivial with software, and what we can achieve even further than that by the use of AI and machine learning is pushing the boundary quite a bit. So that's also changing the world quite a bit. Thirdly, there's an abundance of climate finance. So of course now we've seen actually quite a fast shift in the interest rate environment, and I think this slide is maybe a year outdated, but still there's a big pockets of fairly kind of aggressive and target-seeking climate finance. So driven by the low yield in the past for wind, solar, etc., there's an increasing pockets of higher risk-seeking and higher return-seeking money, which is increasingly being directed into climate tech, and that's driving a lot of the phenomena you're seeing on the public markets with SPACs, for example, but also on the venture capital market. So there's basically funding for the best innovation, and that's changing the rate at which that innovation is coming out. Fourth, a bit of a soft signal. I feel we're only kind of starting to see the beginning of this, but we're really perceiving a generational value shift. Climate issues, social awareness, that's becoming higher and higher kind of prioritized in the new generation. And a lot of the best talent is seeking opportunities where they can make a difference for the world and where they can build something new. And that's, of course, contributing then to how companies work and what companies can achieve. And running across these kind of four drivers I just mentioned, there's then essentially what we can call the defining issues of our generation, climate change and related to the biodiversity imperatives. These used to be things that kind of came up on the last page of newspapers. Today it's very regularly front page news. And that's acting kind of across these four drivers I was mentioning earlier. Of course, there's a lot of things around the future of work, regulation, etc., which kind of didn't make the top 5 here, and those are also very pertinent drivers in energy and in the world overall. But what we're trying to pull together here is the five big drivers that are really bringing about this change of transitioning from the old, let's say, linear electricity system into the kind of two-directional kind of triple node of generating energy, having active demand, but also then storage of energy. And that shift is seeing an unprecedented kind of change in the energy world. And that's also why there's a high imperative for companies like us at Fortum to invest heavily in kind of looking 10, 20, 30 years into the future in order to be competitive when this change happens. So that's why I have a job, and that's kind of what we spend our time in my team. If we look then at the big picture of decarbonization, what you see here on the left-hand side is kind of one way to slice and dice the roughly 50 gigatons of CO2 equivalent of greenhouse gases emitted per year. Of course, there's kind of many ways you can put this into different buckets. This is just one representation of how to make the division. And in simple terms, it's about a quarter of energy for power and heat. It's about, a quarter of the emissions coming from power and heat, a quarter coming from agriculture and land use. That, of course, is linked more so to other greenhouse gases than just CO2. And then the remaining 50% are kind of an assortment of industry, transport, and other areas which are easier or more difficult to decarbonize. And if we look kind of at these three areas, For power and heat, as you can see on the right-hand side, there we already have the innovation needed to decarbonize that. So to move from the fossil fuel economy into renewables. And that's driven by the first driver I mentioned on the previous slide, cheaper wind and solar. So there the kind of technology already exists. And the way to increase then the penetration of those technologies by smart software, etc. That's kind of what allows for bringing the emissions in this bucket down. If you look at the left-hand side, the kind of remaining 50% after you account for agriculture and land use, which is a bit outside the Fortum scope, there the fastest path to decarbonization oftentimes is through electrification, and that could be direct electrification, for example, what we're seeing with cars and car batteries, but it could also be more indirect, for example, through hydrogen, which we've heard a lot about already today in different industries. So here we find that the innovation that's needed is essentially the technologies and the solutions that allow for putting the weight of this 50% on the electricity sector by electrifying them first, and then as that kind of electricity mix decarbonizes, then you end up also removing the greenhouse gas emissions from this 50%. And of course, the pace at which that can happen varies a lot by the industry. So electric vehicles are an example of where that transition is happening very fast. Steel and cement, other areas which are super interesting today, but not as far down that journey as the others. And finally, if you look at then the agriculture and land use, there we view it as a question of what's a cost competitive way to sequester carbon, really managing the stocks and flows, the natural stocks and flows of CO2 in the atmosphere, for example. There's a lot of value to be had in higher topsoil carbon for agriculture, and there's a lot of potential in sequestering, in storing carbon dioxide in forests, etc. So that's also an important bucket. So that's how we kind of look at this 50 gigaton problem and how we slice and dice that into breaking down the problem and the solution there. And so these three areas are ones which we look for innovation. Taking that a step deeper, then a bit more concrete, what you see on this slide is the startup investment focus at Fortum. So what I mentioned at the beginning was I head our startup piloting activities, so working with startups becoming a customer, our venture capital fund activities, so investing in funds, and then our direct investment activities. So this is a summary of, or kind of the mandate where Fortum invests directly in startups. And we do this through our Valkyria Growth Club, which is an on-balance sheet vehicle for startup investments. We have a portfolio of a bit less than 10 startups today, primarily here in the Nordics. Thematically, we look at parasite operational excellence. So essentially, what are the lines of code that can transform and leverage the existing assets base of renewable energy production, create value in that way. Secondly, electricity flexibility and storage. So not just the physical hardware allowing to store electricity, but also the virtual power plants and the demand side management technologies and software which allow for virtually storing and managing that balance of electricity on the system. Thirdly, the electrification of industry. So this relates back to that 50% problem I mentioned on the previous slide. We look to invest in the technologies which enable industry to become electrified and us joining in that part of the decarbonization battle. And then finally, the circular economy, which I mentioned at the beginning, besides climate change, that's one of the two big megatrends we're active in Fortum. So we're looking for both physical and digital technologies around kind of managing how materials and waste flow through the system and how to make this kind of one directional economy circular in the material world. In terms of stage, we look for seed stage tickets. We want to engage as early as we can once there's a product market fit in order to kind of contribute to the company in the best possible way and help entrepreneurs really solve the problems and bring the skills we have in the Fortum organization to help in finding solutions to that 50 gigaton problem. Seed and Series A are both relevant for us. And finally, on the right-hand side, we look for scalable, iterable business models. We are digitally enabled and look for digital startups primarily due to our cost of capital and that structuring path. But we recognize climate change and circular economy are inherently hardware-intensive challenges. So we are open-minded also to hardware investments. And we look for startups which are located and active in geographies where Fortum is active, so the Nordics and Central Europe. And the B2B focus, of course, is key to us in our strategy. And really, ultimately, when it comes to startups, we want to engage with the ones where we can be a helpful and constructive investor. So again, utilizing the knowledge we have in the 19,000 of us in the Fortum organization to help companies forward in that journey. But we don't only invest in startups, we also work with them. So we look at the kind of partnering and investing tracks as two different things. Of course, there's a lot of synergy between those, but essentially one is not conditional to the other. And really the reason we work with the best startups globally who have solutions to the challenges we're seeing at Fortum is to become competitive and kind of manage on the long term. That's also really a source of competitive advantage for us to be savvy with the technologies which are emerging today, but tomorrow will be essential to solving problems in the world. I won't go through all of these, but really briefly outline the categories. Everything to do with assets and business we already have existing at Fortum, and which can allow us to run those business more efficiently, capture opportunities we haven't captured in the past, and of course solve operational challenges, which of course are inherent to any business. Those are the companies we look for and try to work with actually as much as we can. Typically through a several month or a couple of month pilot to begin with, where we pay kind of market price for using that and testing that service solution, and then aim to scale that more broadly across the organization and for the more long term. So the successful pilot is one which we can then utilize also in the long term through the proof points that come in the pilot. So what's relevant to us is hydropower, solar, wind, district heating, recycling and waste, of course, related to the circular economy, and also our consumer solutions business. So essentially, not just electricity retail, but all the other benefits and solutions we can sell to retail customers in the Nordic are what we're looking for. Any startup solving these globally are ones which we love to engage with. With that, let me stop here and open for questions. I hope there's still a bit of time. I'm happy to answer anything I might be able to from the audience.
Thank you so much, Mikael. I'm sure if there'll be questions, they'll be up on the chat soon, and I hope you're staying back for the last bit. Thanks a lot for the overview and the different possibilities of collaboration for the startups in India. If you guys have any question, I'd be happy. I think we have one hand raised. Ravi, would you like to ask any question?
Hey, Mikael, this is Ravi. Not sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but yeah, Ravi from Shell. I was curious around your first or second slide. You present 4 pillars, right? The last pillar was around 60% youth to be sensitized, if I remember that correct. Is that?
Sorry, you're referring to the drivers of the energy transition and kind of the percentage of youth kind of worried or engaged in the climate change problem.
Super. So I was just curious to learn how much is that? How big or small that number is? 60% of global youth?
That's a great question. Of course, varies also by geography. If we look at Western countries, I mean, not recalling the exact numbers here, but we've seen roughly a doubling of that in the last 5 to 10 years. It's a fairly fast shift ultimately.
Right, and is that a time-bounded target? I mean, you're talking about a decade or a couple of more decades, or what?
Yeah, so this is basically looking at the signal we're seeing today. So in the past, we've had, ballpark 30% based on questionnaires answering that, climate is a problem, which is, big to me. And now that's the share of people answering yes to that question has increased to 6% already today. And this is what we see as kind of a proxy or even a term of a leading indicator showing that the attitude really is changing for youth. And therefore, that's also leading to a change in how workforce is looking for jobs and which companies are able to recruit the top talent.
Yeah, maybe the last follow-up question. What I was curious to learn about, because what the Paris Agreement says after 2030, there is no point to do the things, right? We can't really reverse the climate change. So by 2030, we are talking about to sensitize the 60% youth.
No, that's today already. So this is kind of the numbers presented on that slide. These are the facts forward today, and not targets as such.
Gotcha. Thanks, man.
Of course.
I noticed that there are a couple of questions in the chat for Mikael. There's first a question about would Fortum engage with startups in India?
That's a great question. Absolutely. If we look at our piloting program, that's the most relevant here. We look for the best startups, or let's say they're the best solutions and products from startups globally, as long as it fits to a Fortum asset or a Fortum business today, then we're very open-minded to work with the company. And what I do want to mention is we have a growing business in India as well. We're primarily engaged in the solar power business there, but we also have what we call Bio2X, so bio-based materials business, as well as e-mobility business. So the charge and drive network, the Fortum brand is also active in India, basically aiming to electrify the personal transportation market. But it doesn't have to.
Great.
An Indian startup doesn't have to solve an Indian problem for Fortum. It could also be deployed in Europe if it's solving something which is pertinent to Europe.
Great, and we have another question. What is the opportunity for biodiesel?
That's a great question, and I'm not the right person to answer that honestly, as we're not a fuel company, but rather an electricity company, primarily electricity and gas. But when it comes to biodiesel and biofuels in general, based on what I could call my limited knowledge, that's very much still up in the air in terms of regulation. If you look at the price points, if you look at the volume on the market, that depends a lot currently on government regulation. On the long term, of course, it starts becoming more a question of how cost competitive is that, for example, synthetic fuels or extra fuels, as they're called, and how that all plays together. But as a venture capital investor, you need to be also concerned about not just the end state, but the path to that end state. And the path is very dependent on regulation today, essentially determining do companies in the biodiesel space, for example, go bankrupt before the market opens up or not. So regulation, and then on the long term, alternatives from the electro fuel side are the two points I would highlight in that regard.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hanna. Thank you, Mikael, to take these questions. And with that, we've come to the end of, the last session of the evening, for which we have a very interesting panel on board. We'll be discussing about the future of energy ecosystem in India. So welcoming our first panelist. Welcoming our first panelist, Anand, Jain, founder and CEO of Aerem Group. Our second panelist, Swapna Gupta, partner at Avaana Capital. And to moderate this panel, we have Prapti Patel from the investments team of Anthill Ventures. I'll quickly highlight them for you so that we can begin with the session. Hi, Anand.
Hi, Arzu. How are you?
All good. Hello, Prapti.
Hi, Arzu. Hi, Anand.
Hi, Prapti.
Yes, hi, Swapna.
Hey, hello, everyone. Very, very good panel so far. Very excited to be here.
Thank you. I think over to you, Prapti, for the last bit. Thanks.
Thanks, Arzu. Anand and Swapna, it's such a pleasure to be here moderating this panel with you. I think we can just start with a quick round of introductions. I'd like to hand it over to the two of you, and then I'll introduce myself. Anand, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all. It's a very auspicious day here in India. And thanks to Business Finland and Startup India and Headstart Network to give us the opportunity to participate. I'm the founder of Aerem. Prior to that, I've spent about 20 years in financial services and renewable energy. Last 12 years in renewable energy since about 2009. Before that, I was doing investment banking in New York, and prior to that with large private sector banks in India. So yeah, 8 years of financial services, about 12 to 14 years of renewable energy experience. And now building Aerem, very passionate about it, and we'll talk about what we're doing during the chat.
Thank you, Anand. Swapna, if you could go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm a partner at Avaana Capital, engineer background, and love technology. Everything technology. All years of my life have been dedicated to technology. In the last 8 years, were with a large technology major called Qualcomm Ventures. In fact, Zoom is one of the platforms that we're using as one of our early investments. So really saw cutting edge of technology, and now believe that it is a point in time opportunity in India to use technology to gear towards our climate goals, and hence very, very excited to build climate tech companies and work with them and really see how the next 2 decades evolve in India.
Thanks very much, Swapna. Folks, I'm Prapti. I currently work in the climate sustainability and urban tech investments team at Anthill Ventures. I've been here for about 1.5 years now, and before this, I was working in social impact consulting at Dasra, where I was working with funders, government, and nonprofits on water, sanitation, and adjacent environment and livelihoods issues. So it's a pleasure to be here, and truly an honor and privilege to be moderating this panel with Anand and Swapna. It's actually a really interesting juxtaposition between the investor perspective and the startup perspective. So I'm really excited to get into it. So that's what I'm going to do. Swapna, so my first question is for you. Avaana Capital is one of India's leading investors focused on sustainability and climate, right? And within clean energy specifically, your thesis includes energy storage and distribution, decentralized and renewable energy, and smart grids and microgrids, right? So how is this thesis built? Why these specific areas? And why is it important to invest in these areas in India?
Yeah, I think these 3 sectors and many more, and we can come to that. But I think how we put it is we are just a bunch of intellectually curious people, right, who came together to do VC, and we have been in the ecosystem for far too long. And as we look at today, we look at energy transition is the next big towards clean energy is the next big problem statement, and hence the biggest opportunity. We need to get to 2070, which means we need to get to 2030, which means there will be a wave of renewable which will happen in the country. And when you see enough headwinds and tailwinds, you know, these are the areas you need to start investing in and deploying technologies to bring change or bring large scale returns and impact, right? But also it's not something you decide overnight. It's a function of your many years of experience in the industry. So if you look at our team, I would say it is the most capable team today to do climate tech in India, because our experiences and journeys have been the segments we have been operating in, right? For example, my partner Anjali, she's been working in the energy space for long, and she also sits on the board of Tata Power. And we see how energy is sort of being looked on, how people are thinking about transition, renewable, etc. And we are part of those conversations, part of those think tanks. My other colleague, Shruti, she was with Acumen, IFSH. She worked on energy transition before it was even meaningful in Indian context, right? I have worked for the large major called Qualcomm, and I've seen how technology is the only way to bring that change in any sector, right? I've done a lot of supply chain, mobility, agri-tech. We are spending a lot of time on EV, and using technology to make that meaningful change is the only way to make it happen. So I would say it's marrying of minds. It's past experience which has come together to say which are the 3 or 4 big problems in India in terms of energy, and which are the 4 or 5 key technologies which will help us get there, right? And that's how we have identified. And this again is not in silo, right? We are local investors, but our network is far too global. For example, I'm part of this global prestigious network called Kaufman Fellows, wherein there are enough and more global north, as we call it, VCs in Europe and US who are talking about interesting things in energy. We talk to them on a daily basis to understand what's happening. We're talking to all the large technology majors, energy majors to understand, right? So a lot of this is, none of this is in silo, but it's a function of our past experience, our conversations, our capability as a team, I would say.
Thanks very much, Swapna. And we'd love to come back to you to dig a little bit deeper on some of these subsectors and subsequent questions. But before that, Anand, a question to you, right? From your perspective, why did you start Aerem? What were your experiences, especially in clean energy and power sectors, that led you to believe that this was an important issue to be solving for?
Yeah, so just quickly, this takes me back to my starting days in renewable. I sort of graduated, did my MBA in US and joined Lehman Brothers in banking. And that's where I got my first introduction into renewable energy. And at the same time, Mr. Modi is the current Prime Minister. He was the CM at Gujarat. He was thinking through or dabbling with the solar policy. So I came back, met him, and got a 10 megawatt project allocated for my company. And that's where my journey started. And at that time, solar was literally zero in India. 8 megawatts literally. I mean, even globally, the solar journey mainstreaming was starting to happen in late 2008, 9. Late 2009 is when I came back. So I met him, got a project allocated. Now today we've gone to about 55 gigawatts of solar. That's significant curve and a lot of investments that have gone into the sector. But what we saw, I mean, and along the way I set up KPMG's solar practice. Then I worked with Sun Edison, Sky Power, some large global firms in the renewable energy space, solar space actually in India. And what we saw is during this time that utility scale has really taken off in India, and then rooftops have lagged significantly. They've not taken off. It's just, if you look at the total proportion of rooftop, is just 15-16%. And out of that, MSMEs even lag out of that. So that's the problem we saw. And globally, if you see, rooftops either dominate or they constitute a significant proportion of their total install. And then in my mind, I see distributed energy is like the way to go. That's the future. And then so rooftops not taking off globally does well. And the most remarkable is that when I went to the market and saw that it's much cheaper than any other source of power or what currently the industry is procuring or a household is procuring. I mean, say it costs about 8-9 rupees and solar is about 3.5-4 rupees even with rooftops. And it's like remarkable 50-60% return annually for 25 years. So great returns, it's the need of the hour, and India has massive potential for rooftops overall. I mean, it could easily be 1,000 gigawatts or more of rooftops potential in India alone, as per our estimate. So all of these told us like it needs to be solved for. And then when we went to the market, we saw that financing was the key issue. Like most MSMEs wanted to adopt it because of the returns that it afforded, and the system became free in a few years. So that's where we tried to partner with banks, and we saw the banks were not ready. So then I went and applied for a NBFC license, got a banking license, and sort of built a product end to end using sort of bringing in deep domain expertise in finance, solar, and technology. So marrying these three to sort of solve the problem at hand. And that's sort of why I built. I mean, the problem, all what Helena and the prior speakers and what Swapna has talked about, the net zero, but the net zero starts today. I mean 2070 is too late. I mean, it has to start today. A large part of that will be, the contribution will come from energy transition, and solar is a big part of that. So yeah, that's why we started Aerem.
Thank you for that, Anand. So Swapna, coming back to you, right? In investments in India, within the climate tech space, I think mobility has taken a very large share so far, right? But one of the things that continues to remain a challenge is that where that electricity is generated, which is eventually used by those vehicles, is still more or less coal powered in India, right? I think on last statistic was like 70% of it is still coal powered. So what are some of those like technologies that are needed, in electricity generation, distribution, storage, potentially with a focus on decentralization, that the entire, or at least a majority of the energy that is currently consumed by vehicles, homes, offices, industries, whatever, can become clean? Mute.
Sorry, it's a good chicken and egg problem, I would say. I would say truer words have never been spoken, but also our belief is EV is our only way to transition to cleaner usage, right? Honestly, I see folks love to use this as an argument that how are you better and how are you cleaner, but there have been enough evidence in other economies of Europe, be it say Sweden or France, right, that they have reaped benefits of moving towards EV transition, and they have reduced their lifetime emissions by 60 to 70% of petrol car, right? And why that transition has happened, I think we are coal-based, unfortunately. We need to get to renewable. And when that renewable transition will happen, EV will be a great beneficiary because the battery storage can happen on renewable. But in today's point of time also, I feel it's a great opportunity because you are actually not thinking about the tailpipe emissions, because now the cars are in the city centers, there is enough tailpipe emissions. You're actually taking that to power centers where production is happening, right? So with the advancements in technology, I'm actually seeing that a lot of these power producers are already thinking of ways to mitigate negative impact of this emissions that they're doing, right? Versus trying to do it at city center across many vehicles, you're actually trying to do it at production source. So I would say transition to EV is the best way to get to cleaner usage. I'm also pretty confident with all our net zero goals, etc. We will get to renewable energy. And once that transition happens, then we will come to terms with that. Look, a lot of EV is being powered by renewable sources versus alternative fuels. The other part really, which I think we ignore is we all want to get renewable energy. We want to be associated with it. But the point is the supply and demand, right? The storage. How do you get the optimum storage going, which is true for EV also, right? I would love to get it on batteries, but how do you get the storage going? Everyone is working on it, non-peak hour generation to peak hour consumption, excess generation, how do you store, balance the fluctuations. And honestly, today, of all the alternative options, battery storage is the only option that we're seeing, and there are many more technologies sort of in transition. But I would say, instead of sort of thinking that, hey, EV is also at the end of the day as nightmarish as I see, I think it's our only way to transition to cleaner energy usage.
That makes sense. And that's definitely an interesting insight that, other countries and continents have done it in a similar way. And once the vehicles are brought onto the roads, the more upstream in the value chain also starts seeing changes. That makes a lot of sense. Anand, the question for you. Now, Aerem exists at the intersection of clean tech and fintech, right? And one of the main things in your model is providing financing for MSMEs to be able to install rooftop solar. So why was financing such a big issue? What is the current state of affairs? Why can't MSMEs access financing, from the bank on the road in front of them? And then what are some of those larger plays that you're seeing in fintech and climate tech coming together?
Yeah, so this was the foremost problem that we saw when we started Aerem, and that's what we intend to solve. It's absolutely clear, and there's tons of literature around on the internet that financing is not available because banks don't understand solar really deep, okay? And solar will go the asset finance way, like a vehicle finance happened, or but it's not a standard product. It's like a combination or an integration of multiple components, right? So in our experience, what we saw that banks really don't have the infrastructure, policy, or sort of a technical competence to do financing for solar. For asset finance to happen, I mean, the bank needs to be comfortable, not just with credit, but also the asset side. And that's the asset side de-risking is what the banks typically lack. And I met like a lot of these banks, large banks, and the customers also. So we saw that they did not really have the ability and infrastructure policy to do that. Number two, they were all focused on larger deals because the teams were aligned for larger deals. I mean, they would rather do a $50-100 million deal, I mean, rather and then focus on something like a 50 lakh or a 25 lakh project, and all of this requires technology platform, right, to make it happen and scale. So because of these things, banks are not doing it, and then the other key problem is the fragmentation of the installer ecosystem. That also leads to lack of supervision and monitoring, and then the quality assurance that comes with it. So all of these things is what we solve for, and which is why banks don't do it. And ultimately, what I saw is like the solution has to be entrepreneurial led and nimble. NBFC and a tech platform will do this, and that's why we put this together. And now today, banks are looking to partner with us to enable their books and lending as well.
That's very interesting to see that, after the solution is becoming a little bit more common, it's not as though banks are able to just become a competitor. Instead, they're collaborating with you. So that definitely speaks to the success of the model.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I mean, I was just saying absolutely right. Most banks will come on board on this asset. There is significant amount of buzz and noise. But ultimately, it's when the rubber hits the road. I mean, it's about executing and getting it done. Everybody talks about it. I've been hearing it for 5-6 years. Rooftops not happening, financing is not available. But somebody's got to solve the problem. So I had the financial services experience. I have the solar experience. So we're just trying to get this done. It's a complex problem, but I think needs to be solved for.
Absolutely. Swapna, coming back to you on some of the issues you were discussing, right? So currently one of the challenges in the renewable energy space in India is the entire stability of supply, the safety of the grid, People say that renewable forms of energy cannot be captured, distributed, supplied in the same way that, for example, coal-powered energy can, right? So there are a lot of interesting battery management technologies that are currently potentially at a vehicle level or a charging station level. So what is the potential that you see for this to be scaled up to a grid level or a microgrid level, given that, you know, smart grids and microgrids is a focus and expertise of Avaana?
Okay, going off mute. I think you're right. There is a lot of innovation happening, but a lot of this is not yet reached commercial markets. I think everyone is sort of figuring out the way to get it to the grid and still be stable, still be optimum, still sort of make the unit economics work. And of course, battery storage is a solution, but what we are also seeing that new age battery tech solutions, chemistry, mechanical, electrical, everything sort of coming together to versus the traditional lithium ion that we have been seeing for too long now, as to what can be the new innovation to make that change, which is good and heartening to see. So a lot of lab level, getting ready for commercial deployment sort of technologies. Other I'm seeing actually globally, people are being much more inventive in terms of, for example, I was reading about a company which is using, I think it's California-based company, which is using smart blinds for home usage. So you can actually use that smart blinds to control the temperature in the house and also for energy usage in your house, right? That's a great off-grid storage in some ways and very decentralized. Microgrid controllers is one way to make microgrid work, and we are seeing a lot of good innovations around controllers. We're also seeing very interesting mechanical models. Again, I think India is still not at a tipping point, but I think a lot of this is happening in Europe, and we had Finland, a lot of good technologies from Finland that we talked about. We're seeing mechanical models to store excess energy and then convert it to kinetic, and then it releases to the grid, right? Very interesting models, right? But I think India is still sort of catching up, understanding. It's again CapEx deployment. How do you get there, etc. In fact, the other day I heard about a very interesting company. I think it's again Finland-based, and kudos to Finland for getting there. It is, I think, Polar Night Energy or something, which is using sand, I believe, for getting storage of energy, right? So I think globally also we're seeing a lot of good innovations happen, and India is taking a leaf out of some of these and building their own innovations around battery and storage, and also sort of thinking about how do you create a decentralized grid and weave all that energy back to grid. So we are seeing interesting technologies. I would though agree with you. It's all at sort of point of commercialization, pre-product market fit, pre-commercialization. So I guess in another 1.5 years, we will see some real proof of concepts out there.
Sure. And just on the point of, you know, these technologies, even once they are ready, the applicability or the absorption capacity of the Indian market traditionally has been lower than potentially global markets, right? So has that been your experience as well, that, you know, you build in India, but you sell abroad, and then in time, the Indian market gets to the level where they can pay, and then, you know, you're also able to sell within India?
So I've seen both models where you're using India as sandbox, and you know it's hard for you to monetize that market in India and you start selling globally. I've also seen models where I think international consumers are more forgiving. So you sandbox there, and then you realize you have been able to actually operationalize the cost to a level where India market will be sort of willing to adopt you, and you come here and scale it. But I always tell people this, right? If you build for a country which is 20% of the world population, super fragmented, there is enough you need to get to your North Star. I think you can sell anywhere in the world. And we have seen this with enterprise over and over again, right? And technology being sold, built in India to the world. So I'm sure similar replicability will be seen globally. But today, I think we are also sort of in a unique place where we are thinking locally versus globally, because again, I think at least in energy transition, I think globe has made some good strides. We are still in the early, I would say, adoption curve versus scaling curve. I think once we get to scaling curve, and given our nature of technology is super low in cost, best quality of entrepreneurs, best quality of technology, best software comes out of India, we will see some of them getting adopted globally. I don't know if Anand has a similar view.
And you want to add to that point? Yeah.
No, absolutely agree. I mean, like, so at some point, what we are building in terms of tech platform, right? I mean, we would make this sort of take this abroad once you perfect it and make it better and mature. You know, we can definitely take it outside India and sort of. So absolutely agree, because it's a tough economy and it's a tough place to build and sort of mature a company and the tech platform, because you have all kinds of variability and noise around the trend that you have to deal with. So typically,
on that point, Anand, I wanted to ask you, from a startup's perspective, even someone who came with so many decades potentially of experience in that same market that you were starting up in, clean energy in India is still fairly new, right, in terms of company starting. So what were some of the challenges that you faced, whether that's in terms of raising investments or hiring the right team or building the right technology stack? Like, if you could just take us through that journey a little bit, I think that'll be helpful.
Oh, I mean, lots of challenges for any, not just clean energy. I mean, just starting a company is challenging, and it comes with its ups and downs, right? Both professionally and personally. I think personally, it just has to be driven out of passion. Only then, one can survive the sort of ups and downs. But in terms of hiring, so for us, for example, at Aerem, like we're marrying financial services with clean energy. So we sell in a way like one of the products are loan products, right? And there are no guys who have the experience of selling loan products for solar systems, right? I mean, you just need some understanding of those solar rooftop systems as well. And that's where sort of, but we're hiring loan guys and good guys and just training them on the product. So I'm just sort of finding, I mean, because being one of the first ones or being a venture to do this, the challenge is finding people who have the knowledge. But having said that, we are able to tell our story well. I mean, it's clean tech, it's fintech, and people do hear it, and we are able to attract really good talent at the senior level and mid level. So we've done that at Aerem for sure. In terms of fundraise, yes, it's been challenging, because one of the challenges I think I realized is, I mean, it would be surprising and quite ironical and contradictory to hear is like, it's because a lot of these mainstream venture capitalists, they don't have a thesis on the sector. A lot of them, I just realized, a lot of these big names, they're still building their thesis or getting to know the sector. And that's one challenge we face. I mean, I would say there's a lot of late stage capital in this space. When the people say climate finance and there's tons of capital flowing, I mean, but for early stage, it's still tough. I think battery space has seen much, but like finance, solar, or because some of the experiences we've had in the last 10 years, last decade in India with solar, like it's people try and paint that picture as well. So, I mean,
Anand, we should be glad we are here now, and there should be more climate tech funds in India now.
No, absolutely. I mean, and in fact, I've connected with Anjali. So absolutely, the people like Avaana but even like, see, some of the impact funds I've seen, they see
I think the
us
challenge is most people don't understand technology,
Right.
and they think it's still project finance and clean tech.
That's right. And what we're trying to do is we're using tech to scale. You're solving a problem at scale, right? It's not project finance. Absolutely, Swapna. And I've done project finance for multiple projects. You just bid and then just build that. That's infra return. That's private equity. That's not venture investment. So and that's one challenge I faced, and it's been hard to sort of, and thankfully we've got one mainstream VC sort of commercially to believe in us and give us the capital, and we're building for next stage. Yeah, I mean, that's team. Yeah, I mean, and it's just very challenges personally. I mean, time away from your family and just all of that comes with it. I think any startup or any entrepreneur doing that. So.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Anand. I'm sure any founders in the audience will be more than able to relate to that. I'll just ask my last set of questions each, and then potentially we can open it up for Q&A from the audience. So, Swapna, what's next, in terms of clean energy investing more broadly for Avaana as well as, for the sector in India, do you think?
I think generally all the points that we already discussed and mentioned, energy transition is real. World is moving and India will move towards renewable. We need to figure out better way of generation, distribution, and storage. That is table stakes today, because if we don't do that, then it's a lost opportunity, I would say. And there is no way to get to 2070 net goals or 2030 midterm COP goals, right? So we will have to think about all these three problems, not one of them. All three are important, not in silos. And we also need to sort of be in a place where innovations start happening locally versus using global tech to solve for India, because again, that's not possible. We have seen that with batteries, right? Take something from China, build here, everything goes up in fire and flames, because it's a very different terrain, it's a very different sort of latitude, longitude that the country has. So please, I would encourage all entrepreneurs to think about these three problems. Each of them is very important, and build locally for India. And I think it's a huge opportunity at this point of time.
Thank you, Swapna. Similar question for you, Anand. We know what Aerem focuses on currently, which is rooftop solar and financing for that for MSMEs, right? But what is the future? Whatever you can disclose, of course. Are there more renewable, like other forms of renewable energy that you plan to tap into? What is the future for Aerem?
Of course. I mean, there's nothing. It's about execution. There is nothing about confidentiality. We will position our financing solutions for sustainability. It's just not solar. Rooftop solar is commercial today. I mean, it's commercially viable and established. I've done project finance at large scale, and we are just bringing that same experience in establishing that. Today, we have like portco companies of our VC, and like number of them, they do electric chargers, those battery management systems, and they're looking for finance. Rooftop solar is looking for finance. All of the issues, all of the entrepreneurs I talk to, key biofuels, I mean, just one chat, right? Each one of them is looking for a financial solution to the problem. But we will only be able to intervene when it's commercially scalable and viable. Solar is there today. It's mainstream. About 250 gigawatts is installed every year, right? I mean, globally. So, and transition is already on the way. I mean, solar is being deployed on large scale. So it's mainstream. That there is no risk on the technology side there. So we count comfortable, confident, and so we've started with solar. But we will step into electric chargers, maybe green hydrogen at some point. So we will position all our financing side using technology to sort of enable this financing.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Anand. So folks in the audience, if you have any questions for our speakers, please do put that in the chat and I can read that out to them. I think I can start with the first question that's already come up, which is that what is the role of nuclear energy in the Indian clean tech space? And I think potentially both our panelists can answer this question. So Swapna, if you want to go first, and then maybe Anand can take it.
I think nuclear, similar to hydrogen, I don't think we will see too many startups in there. I think we'll see startups build part of the technology, but a lot of this is actually will be seen built by large corporates and government coming together for India, right? And we have a similar opinion on hydrogen as well. Again, nuclear is more political, more regulated. So there are a lot of their nuances. I don't think I'm a subject matter expert on that. But of course, it's a good alternative resource, which should be mined, could be mined, and a lot of the world has worked towards it. But India, I would say, is also still in early infancy of thinking through that, because I don't think we have gotten there yet. I'll let Anand add if there is anything else he thinks.
Yeah, my view on nuclear, I've seen a lot of ups and downs with it. Nuclear, whenever world sees an energy crisis or some sort of crisis, there's a renaissance that nuclear goes through, sort of. And it's the biggest problem for renewable is NIMBY, the whole not in my backyard. And it's very difficult. The long gestation periods, 7 to 8 to 10 years, critical technologies, government to government contracts, move slow. So for its ability to really, I mean, it may form the base load, but unless it just moves very slow. And people are, I mean, everywhere in India, there are people. So it's very tough to find sites. And even globally, like, I mean, Japan again has restarted nuclear, right? I mean, Europe has started to think nuclear again because, conventional gas and all of that has started to. I saw that same cycle, same thing in 2008 in one financial crisis. I mean, nuclear 2008-9 nuclear started to go through a renaissance. And our partner just became very excited, but nothing much happened after that. So not sure. I mean, I'm not very positive on nuclear really, but we'll see how it goes. It's just jury is still out on nuclear.
Well, Anand. Another question that's come in is that financing and propensity to pay are the two most important challenges in the climate transition, and how can they be solved for?
Actually, that's a very good question, right? So financing is a challenge, and I think enough and more stakeholders are understanding that. So I think we're seeing more and more come from the government side, regulatory side as a means to enable that, which is great to see. We are seeing new age financing companies to enable. For example, we've invested in a company called Turno. It does EV financing. So traditional people don't know only how to underwrite IC. But with Turner, you're actually underwriting EV and you're getting the whole ecosystem going. So you're seeing a lot of interesting startups also work towards in solar, in EV, etc. I think the third thing is there's enough and more catalytic capital coming to this segment, which is basically, I think world understands it, that you can solve for Europe and North America in 2050, but it's the same air we breathe. So unfortunately, you have to work towards India also. So there's a lot of development finance coming to India towards that. So I would say we haven't figured 100% of it, but I would say there is more and more. I'm seeing global capital from corporates, development financial institutions coming to India to solve for bits and pieces of it.
And do you also want to answer that question?
Sorry, I forgot the question. What was it? Can you just...
So essentially financing and the propensity to pay are the two most important challenges, and how can we solve for it? And also while answering that, there's another question that's specific to you. So why are you not solving for residential rooftop solar is a question someone has asked.
So last month first, I mean, we're just entering residential as we speak. I mean, we just will be launching our app, and sort of it will be sort of straight through processing and quick approval loans. So we're getting in there. So that answers the last one. In terms of financing, of course, I mean, that's why we built Aerem, right? Aerem is there to just solve this whole issue of financing. I mean, branch banking doesn't reach MSME, the corner and every other. So you require the technology platform to enable that, the origination piece, the underwriting, and then the asset de-risking that we do through our platform. And then the post-commissioning, the tracking of asset, those all things become important. So I think financing is key, so that's what we are doing. Propensity to pay, I didn't understand really what it means, but you know, propensity to pay is like we do credit we do very robust credit and check, like, and only then we sort of approve a person to be able to become credit worthy from our or our partner bank. So there are ways to check a person's ability to willingness and ability to pay back, right? So and this solar, for example, throws out enough savings and cash that pays for the EMI. So savings are more than the EMI. So that takes care of really his sort of incentives to pay back.
Thanks for that, Anand. Well, folks, we do have to wrap up, but thank you very much to our audience for joining us today. And thank you so much to our panelists, Swapna and Anand, for sharing their insights on clean energy, clean tech investing, and building a company in this space in India. I'm sure this has been very insightful for our audience. It was super insightful for me. I was taking notes throughout. So thank you very much, folks.
Thanks, Prapti, for having us here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prapti. Thank you, Arzu, Hannah.
Thank you, Prapti.
Swapna, great to meet you.
Swapna, I think this was a very insightful panel, and thanks, Prapti, for bringing out gems from these really experienced folks. And the future does look hopeful with organizations like Aerem and Avaana coming together and, you know, working for the development of this sector. Thanks a lot for joining us. I think we have our speakers here still, and I really want to take a moment to thank them for coming on board for this session, and definitely an eye-opening for all of us here. I hope we'll be meeting again soon in another knowledge session. Till then, have a good time, and yes, you'll be hearing more updates from us soon. Hannah, any last words?
Thank you for all the participants. Thank you for the great presenters. It was a truly inspirational session we had this afternoon.
Thank you so much.